John Linden is the CEO of Mythical Games, and we'll be talking about the GameFi industry and how cryptocurrencies are now integrated with video games on a lot of different levels. John, welcome to the show. Welcome to Kitco. Good to speak to you here at the Collision 2022 conference in Toronto. One of the world's largest tech conferences, and the gaming space is obviously a huge component of the tech sector. Not a lot of people know this, but video games in terms of revenues are larger than movies and the music industries combined. Now, you are currently at Mythical Games, which you started a few years ago, and we'll talk about the current projects you have, but you've also been involved with large game studios, Activision Blizzard, which recently got bought out by Microsoft, but you were there when it was still an independent studio. One of the largest studios in the world. You work for Call of Duty, you told me offline. So tell me about the transition from traditional game studios into Mythical Games, where now you're working on the GameFi space.
It's a big transition. We have coming from the big games. I think we saw some just amazing opportunities to build these big masterpieces, honestly, and take 8, 9, 10,000 people behind the scenes. And I think what we've been looking at now is really how do we take that level of innovation to the next level, right? And we've seen a couple transitions in the space, and being entrepreneurial is a great opportunity for us to kind of be one of the early pioneers in what we think is going to be a permanent transformation of the game industry. Okay.
And GameFi, can you just explain in layman terms what that is?
GameFi, game finance, we got a lot of words for it right now.
Right.
The way we view it is that it's the ability for stakeholders to now start partaking within the economies themselves. So players, stakeholders, brands, esports teams, they can now actually, by using blockchain tech and things like NFTs or eventually tokens, they can actually be part of the game economies rather than kind of playing the games and monetizing outside of the games.
Okay, how's that different from, let's say, when I'm playing World of Warcraft, which is another Blizzard game, and I'm selling my character to another third party and making fiat cash with that?
Yeah, so I mean, well, one that's against the EULA, so it's actually not allowed to be done. It is a problem, honestly. Gray markets have existed in gaming for 20 years.
Yeah.
And the problem is there's no transfer, there's no way to securely transfer.
Okay.
You don't know if you're actually going to end up getting that item at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And again, it does kind of break the rules. So I think the biggest challenge is the game developers aren't a big fan of that because, one, you're breaking their economy, right? Games are designed a certain way and with a certain understanding. And if you suddenly shortcut that economy, then you can kind of destroy the fun factor of the games.
Right.
But what I think Web3, GameFi, things like that, you're now letting the game developers build that into the game from the beginning.
So if I can just maybe summarize for the audience here. So I've got a video game I'm playing, and it's a GameFi game, which means that while playing the game, I have the ability to earn some sort of token or some sort of crypto that I can then exchange for money. Basically, I'm earning money while playing the game, either through rewards or incentive programs or winning levels or whatever the case may be, winning tournaments, and then so I'm actually gaining an income while playing this game. My question to you, John, why does it need to be with blockchain? Why can't I just use US dollars for the exact same model?
No, that's a great question. And I think first of all, to us, there's two things. There's the tokenized economies with an actual token.
Right.
We're not really focused too much on that right now, to be super honest. We've been focused more on the digital asset. So the things like you're talking about skins and all that type of stuff, doing those around NFT standards and making kind of playable NFTs, let's call them, creating value out of that, using gameplay of what do you do with this character or this car or this sword, what do you do in the game to increase value around that, right? Okay. So we think that's a really, really powerful component. It's like having Mario from so many years ago and being able to kind of digitally sell him, right? So why blockchain? I think what we're going to see, we could do some of this without blockchain, to be really honest with you.
Yeah.
Where blockchain becomes really important is I think we're going to see a world to where there's millions and millions of stakeholders, millions of brands and esports and players, hundreds of millions of players that are actually interacting. So things like trust and transparency, having a mutable ledger, all these things that are amazing around blockchain, I think are perfect for this new economy. Right? Okay.
So if every single game or different studio has their own currency, how is it going to be interchangeable? How are the products going to be, And
that's where I think it gets really interesting, is you can start doing some very interesting things around token swaps, or we can get into some very fun concepts around token swaps or bonding local tokens, do a bonding curve to a master token. So there's a universal currency you can move in between. So there's a lot of great concepts that are going to come out. that we're very early days, I still think, in on the blockchain side.
John, give us an example of a game you're currently working on and how people can actually earn money playing that game.
Yeah, so I'll give you two examples here.
Okay.
One, the game has been out for a little while now called Blanco's Block Party. It was our first version. We wanted a game that was actually a game. So we didn't want to just have kind of a gamified economy, because that still feels like work, right?
Yeah.
If it feels like work, it's not a game.
Right.
So we wanted something that had like a storyline and characters, and we're really investing in this. You come in and it feels like a game.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of people come into the game, they don't know it's on blockchain.
Right.
And that's great, you know? They're just coming in playing in this world and they're like, oh my God, I can sell this thing. So Blanco's Block Party is a little vinyl toys. You can go into a big sandbox style game. So think of like a Roblox meets Fall Guys meets, you know, whatever, Little Big Planet. And that's, you know, it's all NFTs. So everything, whether it's the accessories, characters, whatever, they're all limited edition. So it's exciting. That's one that has we're out right now. We have about 1 million players in that game right now, which is great. And the game just got picked up by, we're going to be bringing this out to Epic Game Store. Okay. So we announced a couple days ago.
Nice.
So that, you know, we think, you know, the Epic Game Store has 195 million monthly players. So we're now getting the first kind of NFT games into these new stores. It's going to be a huge growth for the industry.
Which platform is this going to be?
Epic Game Store on PC,
Okay.
PC and Mac. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any regulatory concerns about playing games and making money or issuing tokens through games?
I mean, that's one of the other reasons of the token, the tokens I'm very concerned about with a lot of game developers. It seems like the first move when they want to get in the space is they're like, let's put out a token. Right. I'm like, there's a lot of rules, and we've spent years now walking through that regulatory framework, which obviously there's always little shifts in that, but we're very much up to speed on that to make sure we're compliant in both fiat and crypto in every country we're doing business in, right? Okay. So we've put a lot of that foundational infrastructure so game developers don't have to do that.
I want to ask you about the token design itself, and then we can come back to games.
Sure.
So I actually spoke to the CEO of Splinterlands, and he's got two types of tokens. He's got a stable coin, if you want to call it an algo stable coin, that he uses for in-game trading, and then another token that people can actually trade with. Which model do you have?
So right now, again, we're early days on tokens. So what we're doing is we're doing basically a local token, and we will eventually back that against a mainnet token. So we're right now, again, we're very much focused on NFTs right now. Okay. We'll be introducing our first token economy. The reason for that is most games right now are inflationary by design, and an inflationary token is going to go to zero. Like, so you have to make sure you have the right proper balance of kind of faucets and sinks within a game to make that really work. And I think there's a lot of games out there right now that are like, oh, you can make $1,000 a month. That money has to come from somewhere, right? So I think we're early days. I think there is a lot of people throwing out terms of like what you can make in these games, and I think I think it's going to be more. I think most of the value is going to be around digital assets over the token, but I think the token will be kind of those special tokens. To me, it's not the main token of the game. It's the opportunity for you to have the premier token you earn, right? So.
Well, you can still, there's a lot of different game companies out there that have online stores for skins, customizable options, add-ons, and whatever have you. Are those stores going to disappear in favor of completely an online NFT digital economy that you're talking about?
I think so, because honestly, those are not usually officially licensed. Some of them are permitted. I'm not saying they're illegal, but I'm saying a lot of times they're not supported by the developers. So I think as this technology, the Web3, the NFTs, all that stuff takes off, the developers will be in on it, right? They're going to help build it in, and that's going to be a better model longer term. So some of the older models, some of the skin models, they're great. They've done really well for products like CSGO and all that, but I think they'll slowly get replaced into a Web3 economy over time.
Interesting. Let's talk about your work at Activision Blizzard.
Sure.
I'm curious as to why the big game studios aren't the first to jump the gun on the Web3 GameFi space. It's the startups, it's the new economy, but what the established studios, they seem to be lagging behind. Why is that?
We get that question a lot. Like, where's the big studios at in the space? I think working at one of the biggest studios in my past life here, they're dealing with a lot. They're growing a lot of their own platforms. They're very successful in where they're at now. They like to see when the markets evolve, right? So if you think about mobile, when mobile first came out, it wasn't necessarily the Activisions, the EAs, the Ubisofts that were dominating mobile the first few years. You had new studios that were willing to really figure out what makes sense for that platform. And you had these great leaders emerge with Supercell, Rovio, Scopely, groups like that. Now, King was a great example. Yeah. Now, it wasn't too far after that the Activisions and the EAs start wanting to be part of that and start getting in it. But I think we're a little early, for the major players to be diving headfirst with their existing IPs. But I do think you're going to see them way faster adopt new IPs with partners like Mythical and others very soon. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that.
I know big game studios are very protective of their IPs, and so it's probably very difficult for you to, I don't know, let's take World of Warcraft, for example. It's a game I know very well. You NFT a sword, you sell it to a marketplace. Well, you're essentially selling a piece of the IP from Blizzard, which the company doesn't like to do. How are they going to get around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think those, again, there's still a lot of definitions happening. I think if World of Warcraft ever did this, I'm not sure they ever would.
Right.
But if they do this, it would definitely be like a right to license, right? So it's they wouldn't be transferring you the IP, they wouldn't be giving you the IP, they would give you the right to sell, the right to
the definition of an NFT. You own the.
It is. I mean, I think there's still some misconceptions around it. I think there's for example, if I bought a collectible of Spider-Man,
Yeah.
I don't own the IP of Spider-Man, but I own the right to sell that and put it in my closet. I can put it on a shelf. So I own that asset. I don't think you own the IP to Spider-Man. I think we got to think about this with NFTs. It's not, some of them are. There's been some examples that are very cool, but I don't think that's going to be the usual standard. I don't see Marvel's going to ever let you buy the IP of Spider-Man. They're going to let you use the IP of Spider-man in a different way.
So let's say I create a character, an avatar, on World of Warcraft or whatever other game, Diablo, and then I decide to NFT that character, if that's possible. Who owns that NFT? Is it the game studio, or is it the person who created the NFT?
So again, I think it's going to depend on the studio. I think the technology can really allow either one.
Right.
So for example, there's been projects like the Bored Apes and Yuga.
Yeah.
They actually do assign you that IP. That's not built necessarily into the technology. So there's other groups that don't. They give you the right to use it, the right to make it interoperable down the road, the right to sell that to somebody else or give it away or burn it, or it's now your decision as a purchaser of that digital asset.
Yeah.
But the IP rights, I think, will depend on the holder.
How does the esports sector integrate with GameFi?
I think esports is going to be huge for this space, and I think it's going to be a really exciting time for both esports and the companies that are going to adopt esports into these games. And the reason is that a lot of these studios have hundreds and hundreds of millions of social followers. But what's amazing is groups like the FaZe Clans of the world and the 100 Thieves, they are such a powerful influence on the industry, yet they don't actually monetize within the game. So I think as they're able to start bringing their influence into the game economies themselves, I think they're going to be do really, really well in this space.
Give us a scale of how big the esports industry really is for the audience watching.
I mean, I think there's actually several of the big studios. They have well over 100 million social followers. I think they're probably climbing.
In terms of revenue, how much money does esports generate a year?
I actually don't know. It's not as big as the gaming industry by far, right? The gaming industry is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Right. Esports is in the single billions of dollars and probably in the low at that. So
the video game industry in general, is the user base growing? Is it stagnating? Is it declining?
No, it's definitely growing. Revenues are growing at a really nice rate still. And I think what we're going to see is something like Web3, GameFi is going to shift that total addressable market. So we've now kind of grown from what we were doing free to play, pre-mobile. We're now seeing an industry well north of 220 billion a year. Right. And I think as we adopt these new things, we're going to see a whole new shift of revenue come into the space.
Can you just explain the changing demographics of video game players with the advent of mobile gaming, with the advent of GameFi? It used to be just males in their early 20s. It's a lot more different than that now.
Definitely. I mean, I think we've seen a couple shifts in the gaming industry. The first was free to play, and what ended up happening is we went from about 100 million players to now I think we're at 4 billion players worldwide. Right? Free to play games. So mobile, like mobile games.
Oh, okay.
You weren't paying a $60 price on console or PC to play that game. It was free to play. Anybody could jump into that world. We had new models that emerged like microtransactions and subscriptions and all these new things that happened. Well, that's like 70% of our industry that wasn't even around 15 years ago. So that was a huge thing. We went from 100 million gamers to about 4 billion. So the demographics have shifted heavily. The second phase for us was content, right? We saw groups like Roblox and Minecraft to where anybody in the world could build content into these platforms. And we started seeing more stakeholders that were getting involved in the space. Brands, esports, influencers, musicians, all these groups now are stakeholders in games. And where Web3 and the GameFi sector will do is allow them to monetize within these games. And so what we're going to see an ever expanding kind of collaboration between what's entertainment, fashion, sports, gaming, all colliding into one industry. So I think when people talk about things like metaverse applications and all that, that's going to be coming in various forms and it's going to be driven from the game industry.
That's exactly my next question. Let's talk about the metaverse and how that's integrating with Web3 gaming.
Yeah.
What does the future of gaming look like in relation to the metaverse?
Yeah, that's a question we get a lot. I mean, a lot of people, there's a lot of misconceptions, I think. There's some people that think it's the Oasis from Ready Player One, which is a fictional place that everybody lives in.
In my opinion, John, the metaverse is already here. If you play Call of Duty online, you're interacting with people from another country. If you play World of Warcraft, you're a huge, expansive environment, an online world where you're interacting with different players from different parts of the world. That's right. In a sense, a metaverse already, isn't that?
It absolutely is, and that's my view too. Is that there won't be a metaverse. There'll be multiple worlds that people can be part of. I think to us, there's a couple key differentiators between a Call of Duty online or even a Roblox, right? We think that when you actually can move a character from one world to another in some fashion. I'm not saying you pick up a gun from one and you use that gun in another, but I can start moving assets around. So maybe I have a character from our game, Blankos, and we have a little character named Billy Bones, and he moves into a voxel-style world. It becomes a new version of that character. It's not exactly the same character, but is compatible in a different world. The blockchain verifies that ownership. That starts getting really interesting. When you can context switch from one game to another and your assets and your inventory kind of moves with you. It won't all be usable, but you have a single digital identity or maybe a couple different identities that you can move from world to world. That to me starts becoming metaverse. I also think there's one other shift in metaverses. I think we are seeing a shift in demographics. As we expand beyond gamers, we're gonna get more people that don't wanna download 100 gigabytes to play a Call of Duty or an Overwatch or a Riot. They want to be instantly in these 3D worlds. They want to jump in, they want to transact, they want to socialize. So I think the metaverse vision to us is streaming. How do we stream efficiently? How do we have a world that you can instantly jump from social media into a 3D world, move through different experiences, and have a blockchain behind the scenes that tracks all that and helps you move your identity back and forth? To me, that becomes the metaverse. And that opens up all types of new opportunities for the industry.
How far are we from living in the Matrix and playing games in a virtual simulation?
We might already live in the Matrix, who knows?
Yeah, that's a prevalent theory.
We get this a lot. It's Matrix the documentary, right? Not Matrix the movie. So no, I think I'm being serious. I think we're moving at tremendous paces. I think we're going to see more people in the virtual worlds. We get this a lot too about when are we living in the Oasis, right, from Ready Player One? I kind of hope we don't, because that basically means, if you think about it, that's a fictional story that the world's gone to a dystopian place. So let's hope we don't end up there. Let's hope we end up with applications that are fun, that bring new forms of communication together, that brings different kind of collisions of different content and entertainment together. To me, that's when we succeed.
It seems to me that game studios, you guys are on the software side, but maybe you should really partner up with the hardware side as well, because as a gamer, I really want to see Call of Duty in, let's say, this booth where I'm like doing virtual reality and I'm actually just, shooting my guns with motions of my hand. Same thing with World of Warcraft. I can control my avatar just with the movements of my hand, go on a raid and actually just control spells and stuff just with hand movements and whatnot. That would be, for me, the next evolution that I would like to participate in. How far are we from doing that?
I mean, I think the idea of haptic feedback and motion control and finger control and hand gesture control, I mean, it's definitely here already. Yeah. I think the challenge for studios, I can't speak on behalf of the studios. Right. The studios we would have, the reason we would be a little bit slower to move into that right now is it's just not readily available to the consumer base, right? So I think things like VR and stuff are going to take off. They're very powerful pieces of technology, but we have to move into a much larger consumer base, which is just going to take some time.
What's just that target demographic that I was just talking about? Is that a large group of consumers that you're targeting, or is it just is it so niche that it's not even worth looking into?
I mean, I think right now what's exciting about things like VR, we're in tens of millions now, and I think as we start getting into hundreds of millions, you'll start seeing a lot more happen. And it's moving at an incredible rate. So I think, again, all these are colliding together, whether it's input systems, decentralized economies, cloud streaming, it's all coming together. And that's where that whole vision of metaverse starts playing as a reality.
All right, finally, for investors, how can they participate in this space? How can they make money?
That's a great question. It's interesting. Investors in participating in the space, I think there's a lot of ways to support liquidity processes, right? That's where I think the relationship becomes interesting, is players need liquidity in games. As these tokens start becoming interesting, there is a reward system for investors. I think some of the games haven't quite figured that out. I think some of them haven't quite planned their tokenomics right, and they're using a treasury or something like that to offset an artificial return. So I think we have to get to a point that we can create a sustainable economy that actually has a return for an investor, and there's a big role there. But I do think there's a lot of early speculation that investors are playing in. What I would say is find great teams that are building really great tech and invest behind that. So that's where I would play as an investor right now.
Cool. Final question, John, I'll let you go. What is your favorite video game right now, besides the ones that you're working on in the Mythical Games? What do you like to play for fun?
Man, I have a lot of them. I play a lot of mobile games. I am playing the new Blizzard, the Diablo game's pretty awesome.
Okay.
Just what they've been able to pack into a mobile device, I think is amazing. I think there's just a lot of games. Elden Ring was a really cool experience. I love seeing, there's just a lot of stuff happening right now.
I haven't tried that one yet.
Yeah, Elden Ring's very cool. Very great, very well done game.
I'm still hung up on The Witcher 3. That was an amazing game.
That was an amazing series. Yeah, I cannot wait to see what comes next there as well. So.
All right, cool. John, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, and thank you for watching Kitco News at Collision. I'm David Lin.